Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I'm running a little late this morning, so I apologize for the lateness of this video, but part of it is I'm just kind of dragging hind in this morning. I did not want to come out and do this walk, but I told myself I had to, mostly because I didn't want to. But the reason is yesterday, my goodness, I was on my feet for, I don't know, good 13 hours straight on concrete because we had our monthly meeting, and that's always a big excitement and a lot of work. But yesterday's meeting, it really took me by surprise. It took me by surprise because so many people showed up. I was just overwhelmed by the amount of people. I mean, the place was packed, and people they're really serious about getting themselves ready and what they need to be doing. And it was good because the crowd size, at least, was good because aside from all the many regulars that showed up, there were a lot of new people, but they were new people not because they necessarily watched this channel. They were new people because their neighbors invited them, you know. Maybe they go to church together, they work together, or they live down the street from each other, or whatever. And they were inviting a lot of their neighbors around them, and that's really good that it's growing that way, I think. And not just because someone watches some guy on YouTube and wants to come and see him. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's growing kind of on its own. And it was a really good meeting, and like I said, a massive amount of people. When we have these meetings, especially when they have numbers like that, to put it into perspective for you, we'll have more people at our meeting. Excuse me, that's in my throat. Did a lot of talking. We'll have more people in our meeting than will live in the zip code that our meeting is in. Put that into perspective. It's quite the big deal. Anyways, wanted to cover a few main things in the news because there's a lot of big things going on. Certainly things to be keeping our eyes on, and then just talk for a brief minute about kind of community preps, things that we should be cautious of. Israel's like overnight, it seems like, falling apart. It's things are moving so fast, it's almost hard to keep up on it. But so Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, and many of you may not even know this because it's, like I said, this has moved so rapidly. Mainstream media isn't necessarily covering it, at least not much. But the prime minister has fired the defense minister because of this judicial reform that he's trying to push through. And, well, the whole country just decided to protest. And they say there's over 500,000 people protesting. There's all kinds of videos and stuff of it in the streets of Tel Aviv. They've brought out the water cannons and the riot police. The IDF is on high alert. There are people in the country, officials and stuff, saying that the nation is just about on the brink of collapse because of this. In fact, I saw one official, I think it was the former Prime Minister, Bennett, said that this is what's going on right now is the worst time and the most dangerous time that Israel has gone through since the 6-day war. So we'll have to see how this all pans out and what happens because of it. But as many of you know, Israel is kind of an important player in what's going on, not just because of where they're at and their stance, but also, of course, their biblical relations. So that's a pretty big deal. France is really falling apart. This has been happening for a while, but it's certainly getting worse. They're saying now that there's about 3.5 million people protesting and rioting. The media may not tell you, use the word rioting, but that is exactly what they're doing. It is a pretty much an all-out revolution. They are burning buildings and vehicles and lots of violent fights with police. And a lot of the police and a lot of the fire departments have laid down their badges and that sort of thing, and they're now siding with the protest and rioters. It is like the French Revolution 2.0. Another big hit to the dollar. Kenya, which, mentioned Kenya, was it yesterday or something like that? The Kenyan president had said that the US dollar is basically done, to get your money out of the US dollar. And they have announced an agreement with Saudi Arabia and the UAE to now be purchasing oil from them using Kenyan currency, not US dollars. Again, this is a big deal. One, not necessarily the only, but one big reason that gives the US dollar its power, one of several, is that it is the petrodollar. And it's been the petrodollar because of an agreement with Saudi Arabia, which really controls OPEC, that they will only transact oil in the US dollar. And we've been hearing more and more talk about how they will use other currencies or accept other currencies. And here's one, Kenya. And I know Kenya's not, no offense to any Kenyans that might be watching. I don't know if any do, but no offense to you. But Kenya's not a large nation with a large percentage of purchasing power when it comes to, petroleum and stuff. But still, it's another nation that has said, we have no interest in the US dollar, and Saudi Arabia and OPEC has said, okay, that's fine. We'll just use your currency. That's a hit to the US dollar, and it's just the woes and problems of our economy, the financial stability of this nation, I feel are worsening at a pretty rapid pace, and only because of the media and the Treasury and the Federal Reserve's dumping money into the system and propping things up does it not look that bad. But I think it's, and I'm no expert on this, but I think it's probably way worse than what we realize. And then the last thing, Philadelphia, there was a big chemical spill into the Delaware River. One of the chemical factories there says that there was a leak and a lot of this chemical that was dumped into the river, and they're telling people that you need to be drinking bottled water. And so there's that part of it is serious, because here's another very possible attack. I mean, who knows how many of these things are attacks, or it's like I always say, I don't know that I really believe in coincidences. And so how much of a coincidence is it is that there's another, there's been several of these kinds of things. Well, here's another one, that there's this chemical dumped in the Delaware. But also I wanted to point out, if you get online and you start looking around for Philadelphia right now, it's kind of pandemonium. There's countless videos of people in Philly and other places going out to the stores, and they're trying to buy up all the bottled water and stuff. I mean, it has a very much of at least a low-key apocalyptic feel of people, trying to get as much as they can before they can't get any water. And I think part of that is because, as what they saw in Ohio, they probably have very little faith anymore that the government will come and take care of them. And for all of you folks that are like, well, you talk about all this doomsday stuff all the time, and I don't see nothing that big a deal going on. I don't know why we have to act like the end is near and we got to prepare right now. Well, look at these people overnight. They went from having water to not having water. And they're out there racing against time and their fellow man to see if they can get enough water to survive, because they don't know how long it'll be until they have clean drinking water again. And just think, the people up there that were prepared, how much easier it is, because they don't have to deal with the crowds and the potential violence and all the other things that go along with large crowds, you know, running into the stores to buy up everything. So just another reason why you should be prepared. I did want to mention just briefly about, as people and groups of people that are prepared, to caution you, because we're getting into, and I've talked about this before, but I wanted to bring it back up because we're getting into a stage that people are really starting to realize that something bad's happening. Not in mass. There's certainly not mass panic, but there's definitely more people that are realizing that things are a lot worse than what they thought. And as that happens, some of those people are going to say, you know what? All these preppers, well, they may have had it right. Maybe we should all of a sudden become a prepper. And maybe they know people that are preppers. But these people that I'm speaking of, they're not prepared at all. And so they come to you as an individual, or they come to your group, and maybe they have a good heart, but the main thing is that they're not prepared, and they're hoping that if they attach themselves to you and your group, that they can kind of ride the wave off of your preparedness. You know, I'm not saying just immediately just turn these people away. I mean, that's your choice. Maybe they're willing to, kick it into high gear and to get caught up, and, you're there kind of helping them along the way, encouraging them. Folks, that situation, maybe they're worthwhile of welcoming them in. But there's certainly going to be some that they don't really have any real intentions of, making the sacrifices necessary to prepare. Again, they're just hoping to ride it out on your coattails. So I want to caution you of that, because as this continues to get worse, you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more and more people realize how bad it is and realize that they need to be prepared, and they're not. So maybe they just need to find people that are prepared and hang out with them, hoping that they'll get taken care of that way. So be cautious of that. Be ready for that. I'm not telling you how to deal with it, because probably each situation is going to be different, and you might handle it differently. Some, it's probably just going to immediate get out of here, get lost, and others, who knows. But I certainly wanted to remind you of that, because we're going to start seeing that more. You're going to start seeing people show up at your meetings, start to be friends with you more. People that may not have wanted to have too much to do with you, or at least not close friends. All of a sudden, they really like you a lot. They really want to talk to you. They really want to hang out. They're really, inquisitive about preparedness and, all this kind of stuff. And so I wouldn't call those kind of people the werewolves, the ones that's just going to come and take all your stuff. They're just the leeches, and they're wanting to just live off of your preps. Be cautious, because you're going to see it more as things start to fall apart. And if for you small groups out there, your tribes, you should start having these conversations and figuring out what your game plan is. What are you going to do as a group? Is it just an immediate no? At some point, do you cut things off and say, we've closed our doors, we're not taking any more people? Do you have certain guidelines? You should probably think about this, because at some point it's not going to be just, this big kumbaya party welcoming anyone and everyone. At some point, you're probably gonna have to say, sorry, the ark's doors are closed. Just my opinion. Folks, it's time. If you haven't figured that out yet, I don't know what to tell you. It's beyond time to get ready and get your whole body ready, your whole mind, your whole spirit, everything, because the things that we are experiencing have never been seen before. You could make a very easy argument. It's worse than we've ever known. So get your houses in order and prepare like you've never prepared before. Your life depends on it. I mean, do it in that way, because it does. Folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.